PlayStation Portal, Accomplices, and Incident at Grove Lake. This is Staying In. I am currently a quarter of the way through what I like to call Stagageddon.
Okay.
I've got 4 stag do's this year.
4 stag do's.
I had the
You're
first
a very
one.
popular man.
4 stag do's, 3 weddings. Work that one out. I've messed up somewhere.
You've clearly pissed off one of the brides.
Is that since this first stag?
No.
One of them has been, okay, you can invite him to the stag, but he is not coming to the wedding.
You've seen him eat. Yeah, so the first of the stags this last weekend. It's been a couple of days since I feel like I finally just recovered. I finally got the Pop World stamp off my hand.
Oh, good Lord.
Oh, yes. We went to Pop World.
Oh, my word.
If you don't know what Pop World is, just pop it into Google and do an image search and you'll...
I know what Pop World is.
You'll see
so
the horror.
We're not talking about the kind of the mid-2000s Channel 4 music show?
Absolutely not. We are talking a relic from the early noughties. It was actually really strange because it was quite a refreshing experience to be in a venue like that. A venue that when we used to go to them at uni or like after uni used to fill me with a little bit of anxiety because it's kind of like, right, I've got to be cool. Like, how am I dancing? Am I dancing right? Oh, they look pretty. Oh, maybe I'll go and try and dance near them. Oh no, that didn't. Or maybe I'll just like hang them up. Well, but we can't really talk to each other because it's too loud and it would just be like an awful experience. But going in there, we were just like, who cares? I'm married now. I can just dance and have fun and listen to this awful music and just like, it doesn't really matter anymore. Like, and it was just like great, like watching all the people like trying to like peacock around each other and, you know, do all that kind of stuff. But there was like people in the toilets like giving you sprays so that you can laze.
I'm glad you said sprays.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I thought that had been outlawed. Like, what a horrible job to give someone. It's just make them sit in the toilet, encouraging people to spend money. But they've got card machines now, so, you know. The other thing we did on the stag was we did a brewery tour, which is really great, but we were all really anxious about going because upon signing up for the brewery tour, there is a lot in the blurb, and I mean a lot, about how stag do's are strictly prohibited and that stag do's will never be allowed to go on a brewery tour. And, you know, it's not even like no stag do's. It's literally there are sentences about how this isn't allowed and this won't be tolerated and you will be thrown out if it's found out that you're a stag do. First of all, we thought, right, there's only 5 of us, and I know there's a bit of gender politics here that we didn't really want to play on, but we thought, hey, we really want to go on this brewery tour, but one of us was a female, so we kind of felt like they're not really going to think that we're a stag do if we're not all guys. And then we also thought, like, we are not the typical like stag do. One of us isn't going to be wearing a sailor's hat dressed like Popeye. Like, we're just all going to be going in our regular stuff. But none of those factors really diminished any of the process of this like hour and a half long tour. Just thinking, right, he's onto us. He's onto us. Quick, ask him a question about the brewing process. Quick.
So you were like, so did any of you feel like you were like characters in a John le Carre novel? Like there was some kind of frill, like Cold War subterfuge.
Like we were taking the tour, then one of us for some reason just had a spoon in his pocket. Like, he doesn't realise how it got there, but he just like halfway through the tour just pulled out a spoon, and you just saw the tour guide's face go, hold on a second, only stag do's hold spoons in pockets. And which I immediately jumped into a question about alcohol volume and enzymes to throw him off the scent. But what was funny
Peter Willington.
Thank you, saves the day again. He was actually the second person I've met in my life who was a cicerone. And I thought, oh, Pete's one of those. And now I understand what it is, because Pete never really explained it. Pete made it sound like he was becoming a professional barman, but that's not actually what a cicerone is. It's a sommelier for beer. But he just, for some reason, described it in a really weird way. Anyway, so it's the second person I've met in my life who was a cicerone as well as Pete. So he was saying that when the tour started, he was like, just making sure that none of you are stag do's. And we were like,
No.
And he said, because he said the reason why this ban is in place was they used to allow stag do's on the tour. And not only would they be disruptive to people who just want to like learn a little bit about the beer and how it's made, but also one stag do opened a fermentation tank and lost 500 litres of beer.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you can understand why they might.
Yeah, you could kind of like, yeah. Like the disruption is enough, but just doing that is,
Lost or drank?
Lost, as in like opened it up.
He didn't Augustus Gloop it and climb in.
Yeah, down the beer river. Yeah. So you're a quarter of the way through, Sam. So you're pacing yourself.
Got another one this weekend, and then there's a little bit of a break. One of the weddings in between, and then I've got another double bubble back to back. Brother-in-law's, and then yours, Chris's, back to back.
The big finish.
Yeah, one in Bristol, the other one in location unknown, for the big surprise to be revealed when we're flying there. I mean, when we're driving there. I mean, when we're scuba diving.
Sailing.
I mean, when we're submarining there.
When we scuba dive there.
Virgin Galactic.
Virgin Galactic. Imagine that.
Can you imagine?
Your dad.
We had a whip round, Chris.
Oh, I'm not sure about this, Kris.
Because didn't you tell me, Sam, that there was? I don't know anything about my stag, and I don't want to know.
No.
But there was one thing that my dad wasn't sure about, and he spoke to you about. Was it that? Like, I'm not sure about going into space, Sam.
Yeah, he's happy with pretty much everything, but going into space. Yeah. So please pray for me. It's going to be tough.
The 90s are back.
I've definitely seen it in fashion. I've got to say, a lot of flares around these days.
Like kind of those bold kind of colours, almost like that kind of really strong, almost like graffiti colours, peppering lots of fashion, which I love. Also, like series such as, well, Stranger Things has kind of gone from 80s and it's kind of moving into the 90s now. But there's been like a perfect storm of 90s stuff just recently that I've encountered. Like I've been watching X-Men 97 on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Which is really banging. It really is. It is so surreal. Like watching that in 2024 in an evening when you feel you're transported back to being a kid on a Saturday morning.
So what is that? I never really understood what it was, and then I just avoided it.
It's basically the series, isn't it? It's just continued it.
They're continuing the series from where it left off previously with the same voice cast, Sam.
What?
Yeah, so it's set in the late 90s.
We're all thinking, surely they're not all still alive.
It is bonkers. Every episode, it does not hold back. It accelerates at such an incredible speed. You know how The Good Place used to do that? It would do things in an episode that would traditionally take a whole series.
Yeah.
X-Men 97 is doing that. And it's doing it weekly. So it generally feels like you're a kid again. You know, because in the 90s, there was nothing to stream, really. If you miss something, you miss something, really, unless you recorded it on VHS. So that's been doing the rounds. I've just finished playing the first Tomb Raider Remastered, which has been really interesting.
How much of a remaster is the remaster?
Good question.
Because I always hear when something's remastered, I'm like, is it just slightly shinier graphics? Or when you get some of them, like, where actually it's been remade from the ground up?
No, this is shinier graphics because they already remade it from the ground up with Tomb Raider Anniversary. So this is just shinier graphics. And with a click of a button, I mean, immediately you just switch from the PSX graphics to the modern day.
I do like those features.
It's really weird. I love it because it is slightly janky and slightly glitchy still, which makes me feel even more nostalgic about it. Like, it's not like they've got rid of any of the bugs or anything like that. But I've actually found that at instances, I'm having to switch between the two graphic states because at some instances, the level's darker than it is in another. So actually, it helps me solve puzzles. Also, for the very first time in a game, I'm using the photo mode strategically. This is incredible. So if you push in both the joysticks, the L3 and the R3, you get photo mode. And in Assassin's Creed, you can move the camera so far. In Tomb Raider, if there's an open door, you can literally keep the camera moving along there as far as you can. So literally, I can go to the end of a level and go, okay, I've got to get there.
That's quite cool.
I love it, but some people have, issues with Tomb Raider playing it now because it is a lot of backtracking. It's about finding the right combinations of switches. But with the photo mode, I can literally just have a little peek. I go, okay, I'm getting around that corner. Are there any enemies waiting for me around there? Oh, yeah.
There he is.
Yeah. There they are. There's the T-Rex. It's incredible to be able to, and it felt like you do in the 90s, like a player, a kid tells you in the playground, oh, if you do this, you can kind of discover new ways of playing the game. And it's just been really joyful.
With the old graphics, are there any moments where kind of muscle memory kicks in and you have it helps to flick to the old graphics because your kind of brain remembers the process from seeing that rather than seeing it in a new fancy way? You might kind of see that muscle memory kicks in, like, oh, I know, okay, I know what to do now.
Yeah, it's less unnerving, like there's less tension because it is the 90s graphics. It's really interesting because the final level of Tomb Raider, it's not a spoiler, this game's been out since 1996. It's set in a really kind of creepy, kind of almost like Event Horizon kind of world where the entire level is seemingly is living. It's like made of flesh, an organism. And like when you're a kid playing it on the PlayStation, it's just like pink and beige pixels. But oh my gosh, in the remastered mode, it's absolutely disgusting because you know how on like when you do your desktop background on an old Windows computer, you can put it in tile mode. Because Tomb Raider levels, they're a series of tiles, to be honest. It's a grid. It's all blocks and things. It's just something kind of weird about seeing that same pattern just replicated in a remastered kind of game. It was quite unnerving at times. The one thing that was kind of quite interesting as well is they've not changed the music. Like the Spyro remastered, you'd get an updated music. It's the exact same music playing. And also like sound effects. One of the things I love about Tomb Raider is the walls are like paper thin. And that's also helpful for solving puzzles where you go, okay, I can hear that, that pendulum trap over there. It's just next door to me. That helps me orientate myself now because I've been there. You wouldn't get that now in games at all, really. So it's kind of a real labour of love, really. It's interesting with the controls because Tomb Raider is tank controls. So what I mean is that like Resident Evil, you have to kind of turn on the spots and get, line up in the right way.
Yeah.
And it's like docking a space shuttle or bay parking or parallel parking, I should say, and jump forward. They have introduced an option where you can just do it as modern day platforming controls, but it just doesn't work. You can't, because it requires a lot of finesse and exactitude. And you can't get that like playing it like an Uncharted game. You just can't. The game doesn't hold your hand. So you have to use the tank controls. And if I was to play this game brand new, there's no way I'd stick with it. But because it's Tomb Raider and because I've played it and I want to feel like I am 10 or 11 years old, I totally go with it. And I've done that for hours. And I never, I don't think I've ever played a game, like an old game, for that amount of time. But the reason why I talk about it is because I played an indie title the other day that is seeking to emulate those kind of PSX graphics. And I know Pete spoke about a game previously in the past, and there is something about that style of gaming that is speaking to a kind of nostalgia at the moment, really. It's on itch.io. It's called Incident at Grove Lake. It comes from Dan McGrath of ToothandClaw, and it's a short game, 20 to 25 minutes long. Very little interactivity, more of I'd kind of call it like an interactive film as much as a game, really. But it made me suddenly aware of, like, when you're playing something that feels like an artifact of a particular era, you kind of have a sense memory of other stuff around that time impacts upon it. So this game, Incident at Grove Lake, is an alien abduction kind of narrative. And straight away, I'm thinking in the 90s, I'm thinking of the X-Files. I'm thinking of the Twilight Zone, that kind of era of telly you're watching after late at night when you probably shouldn't be, and then afterwards you watch an episode of the X-Files and you can't sleep.
Yeah.
And you just can't wait to tell your mates about it the next day. That suddenly that era in 20 minutes, a 20-minute dose of nostalgia in this is really, really interesting. It reminded me a lot, Sam, of Virginia. Do you remember Virginia?
Yes, I do remember
from
Virginia.
Variable State. Yeah, it's that same degree of level of interactivity, but obviously not as long as Virginia. Virginia was a little longer. And there's not a lot to say about it really, apart, plot-wise. You've got somebody from a kind of clandestine organisation, the FBI, he's leaking a document about alien abductions, and you're playing, as a player, you are going through this footage, and it's on VHS of an abduction. And it's really quite cool because you're playing the found footage. So there was a while where, okay, I put the tape in, I press play. Because it's PS1 style graphics, you can't see very far ahead, so you kind of got this fog in the trees. And I was just watching it, and there's a little time stamp at the bottom, and you've got that crackle on the screen, which tells you it's a VHS, which we all know and love. And I'm just waiting. And then I kind of accidentally nudged my keyboard, and I realised, oh gosh, I'm meant to be moving now. So the footage you're watching is what you are playing, if that makes sense. So
yeah.
You're both the person watching this footage, but you're also the person who was recording the footage to start off with.
So you're basically creating the footage that you're watching.
Yeah, and I don't think I've ever really played any or many fan footage video games.
No. I have done stuff like that before, because when I played this, just before we got onto the call actually, I dropped a couple of dollary dues on itch.io to the creators. And played it just before we joined the call, because it does just take 15-20 minutes, which is quite nice. Yeah, I think for me it was that kind of same feeling that Firewatch gave me.
Okay.
That same sort of unsettling feeling of being in a space like a forest which should feel safe and should feel natural for whatever reason, be it that, there's moments in Firewatch that kind of like seed a little bit of doubt and insecurity, or in this game, those moments of, literally in this game, knowing that something is going to happen, like you are kind of primed to expect a certain experience, and so you're kind of just walking through the forest, just waiting for the trap to spring. So I found it a very sort of similar experience to Firewatch as well, feeling like I'm meant to feel safe in this space, but I don't, because of what the game is doing and how it's kind of playing with the graphics as well. I think that overall I did enjoy it. I think that it struggles a little bit with its pacing, because there's quite a lot of pauses and switches and like scanning, like old VHS scanning, as it gets from scene to scene, and to try and create this kind of like choppy edited style to it. But I think it, especially at the end, there's especially very well acted chilling point at the end, which kind of really helped sort of bring it all together as a game. And it just kind of reminded me that, for a couple of dollars, like itch.io has got loads and loads of stuff on it that I've never really ever explored. Like, how did you find this, Kris? What was it look like? Because it's just like you shared this with us, and it just seemingly came right out of the blue. Like, I've never heard of ToothandClaw before, or as I said, like itch.io has got thousands of stuff on it. Like, I don't know how you even start finding stuff.
So I follow a really good YouTube channel called Get Indie Gaming, and this was, I think it was in their hidden gems of 2023. It literally came on my feed the other day, because I know their channel for a while was kind of gone quiet a little bit, and sometimes when a channel comes back, it takes a little bit of a time for it to kind of work its way back into your algorithm on YouTube. Yeah. So it was literally just the other day it appeared. And as you say, Sam, like for me, it was like it was the fact that it had that kind of 90s kind of nostalgia, which I was currently kind of just by chance kind of starting to immerse myself in, but also 20 to 25 minutes. What a lovely palatable thing to kind of explore, really. Yeah. And it was that. And the review on Get Indie Gaming, like you, also praised the voice acting of it. And maybe that is a kind of a 90s thing, because actually, obviously, the audio quality of 90s PlayStation games I'm thinking of in particular was of a better quality than what you were seeing on the screen, which creates this lovely kind of interesting kind of disconnect there. Because like when you're watching it as a found footage, it felt like I was watching an FMV. And FMVs. That's such a kind of a 90s kind of thing, really. So get indie gaming. But there's another one that's on my radar that I'm going to buy, which has kind of got mixed reviews, but I'm just fascinated by the premise of it, which is Harold Halibut, which is the stop motion video game.
Oh, yes, I have heard about this and I have seen it, and it has also piqued my interest.
Which dropped today as of recording.
Ooh.
It's now available.
I think this kind of, the idea of not so much, it is kind of found footage, but these kind of interactive movies, they are becoming, I think, especially on that indie scene, there's a lot of scope for kind of experimentation with it. Like a while back, I talked about Immortality, which is obviously a similar kind of thing. It's very, very different, but that's all about found footage, and obviously that's, I think, grander in scale in terms of the amount of footage you have in there and the narrative it's trying to tell and kind of the way in which it does that. But obviously, that's your videos that you're watching and you're exploring, as opposed to this is where, as you say, you're watching a video but you're controlling the footage within that. So it's kind of a blend of the two. But yeah, I think that genre is a really interesting genre, and especially with something like this, Instant at Grove Lake, being so short. I think one of the issues I had with Immortality, and it's an issue probably for me more than the game itself, was just that I found myself kind of going round in circles and not really knowing where to go. And so that then, the playtime then drags on longer, and then I can start to lose interest a little bit. Whereas something nice and short and sweet like this, you can have that kind of narrative hit. Would younger generations have that level of interest based on kind of a graphical style? Maybe they would, because retro gaming is a thing, that it's not just people who played it first time around that are going to have that interest. It's a genre in of itself.
But yeah, it's just a medium. It's just a way of telling the story. Like, no one's going to turn away from that bit in Dune Part 2 because it goes black and white, thinking, oh well, this is really fuddy-duddy from the 1930s. I don't enjoy this. You know, it's just a way of telling the story. It just happens to have its roots in a previous iteration of what that medium was. It just means different things to different people, and people will interpret it, you know, however they want. Like for us, Instant at Grove Lake has the extra element to it, which plays on that nostalgia and plays on that sort of like early to late 90s obsession with sort of space travel and extraterrestrials and the great unknown, as like we were really coming out of that, or really entering into the technological age. And I think that's one of the reasons why it goes for such an aesthetic. But for other people who weren't in that time, that aesthetic will be something that probably conjures up a layer of mystery and a layer of sort of opaqueness that really adds to some of the emotional beats that it's trying to play off.
And it's a texture. And I find it quite interesting that we've often criticised some of the Marvel films for having like a look and feel that seems too shiny and too polished. And I do find it interesting that the textured quality of a very noisy looking graphical interface, you know, this case done through the PSX graphics, but on top of that, this VHS kind of, you know, grainy kind of texture gives it that kind of reality, that verisimilitude, in a manner that something that in 4K might not.
No, yeah. It's my biggest beef with what I've seen so far of the new Fallout TV series. Like, some of it looks too good. Like, some of it just looks like it's actually too detailed and too well designed and too well polished to the point where everything looks like a Easter egg. Like, everything stands out to look like a nod to, oh, you've played Fallout, remember these? Rather than something that naturally exists within the world.
I've not been feeling very well recently. I know. But I was round at yours and I wasn't feeling great. But it was lovely to see you, Sam, and to play games.
Thanks.
It genuinely was. But like, I was struggling to concentrate. And you were like, it's okay, Kris. It's all right. Here's a cup of mint tea. I've got some games. They're already on the side here. You just choose one. Choose one, Kris.
Take care of you.
Exactly. And you did, Sam. You're a consummate host. And I said, "Oh, Sam, can we play this one that
No,
we got?
play mine."
We picked up from Hachette because it sounded bonkers.
Yes.
And I want to ride this nostalgia train a little bit because it felt like a game that I would play with my siblings growing up and really enjoying. And that was Accomplices.
Yes. Yes. Accomplices, or Complices, as it's known in some areas of the world, which is quite confusing. But in Britain, it's known as Accomplices. Hachette have published this in the UK, but also published by Old Chap Editions. And I think the other nostalgia thing that Accomplices really feeds into is the fact that it plays with the kind of glasses that you used to get free in boxes of cereal, or you used to get free when you rented Spy Kids 3D and stuff like that, like the old 3D glasses. This is a bit of a nostalgic episode, but do you remember when you used to go to the cinema and they used to have to give you 3D glasses?
Yeah,
and you have
definitely.
to put them in the bin on the way
I literally
out,
found a pair the other day that I'd taken home with me. Probably from Avatar or something, or The Hobbit or something.
Yeah, definitely something like that. Anyway, so Accomplices is a 2-player heist game, 2-player real-time heist game. Now, we've said on the podcast before about shared our sort of general, not dislike, but general sort of unease with real-time games. But there have been a couple recently that have actually sort of, wormed their way into our hearts. I think Dutch Blitz being top of the tree in terms of incredible real-time games. And Accomplices probably is another sort of vying for my attention in terms of a genre that I previously...
Sky Team? Kind of.
Sky Team. But Sky Team feels like a real-time game, but it is turn-based. The pressure really makes it feel a lot more urgent than actually really is. But Accomplices is a real-time game in every sense of the word, because what you're doing is you are 2 criminals, 2 accomplices, trying to steal money from several different locations. It might be a stately manor or a bank, for example. And what you have in front of you is you will have a map, and each level of the game comes with 3 or 4 different maps. So there's 3 or 4 different maps for each area that you'll be going through performing these heists. And in each area, there's little icons that represent money, but there's also blue and red lasers as well in each area. And the idea of the game is, under strict time conditions, I think you've got 2 or 3 minutes, one of you has got to basically draw a line around all the bits of money from one entrance to an exit somewhere else on the map without hitting any of the lasers. Hit lasers, you get some penalties to your final score, but collect a lot of dosh, and you win. It's as simple as that. Or is it? No, it isn't, Dan.
No, it isn't.
Because one of you is wearing a pair of glasses with red film on them, and the other one of you is wearing a pair of glasses with blue film on them. So basically, you can each only see one half of the lasers that are in front of you. One of you can only see the red lasers. One of you can only see the blue lasers. So how the game works is, without putting the glasses on, you have a look at the map, and you have 2 timers. You have the first timer, which is the planning timer, and that gives you 30 seconds to kind of talk to each other about what your tactic is going to be. How are you going to move through the room? Which entrance are you going to use? Which exit are you going to use? And which bits of money are you going to prioritize? And then once you've had that 30 seconds, you basically put your glasses down, like in typical heist fashion.
Do you make a ceremony of it? Do you make it like a 3, 2, 1?
Eyes down. And then you start another timer, which gives you 2 minutes, I think, to actually execute your plan. One of you holds a little dry white marker, and the other one basically helps guide you through this maze and through the lasers that you can't see. And it is remarkably tense.
It is.
I was very, very surprised about how it really plays and really balances along that delicate line of, first of all, let's just go back for that one thing. let's just spend a little bit more time in here just to get that money. Let's make a little detour. I know we're right next to the exit, but let's just make that little detour to go and get some cash. And the other thing is that it plays on is just that real inability for two people to effectively communicate.
Because you're not allowed to point, are you? You can't
No, you're
point.
not
I
allowed
can't
to-
point and show you where you need to go. You have to just use words.
Yeah, you just have to. It's like one of you's in the space, and the other one is basically looking on a CCTV camera to help guide you through the situation as you go by. And yeah, some of the levels are crushingly difficult. Like I don't know how you would even start to go about sort of navigating through them. But it's that feeling of seeing half the puzzle. And for the sake of time, what I was tending to do was confidently just go my own way, figuring out, like, I'm pretty sure about where these lasers are. Off I go. And Kris going, whoa, 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 stop. Stop.
It
was like Operation Tango, Dan.
So
yes,
is there an element of, like, when Sam runs off, if he hits the laser, Kris, you know immediately it's like, oh, you've done it.
We were very close. Like, literally, after a while, and this is one of my favourite things, is because obviously I could think that Sam may have hit a laser, but obviously I can only see half the lasers on the board, so I don't know. And there's that lovely moment where both of us, you're talking about rituals, both of us take our glasses off and we look at what the hell we've just done. And we were so amazingly close, Dan. And that was part of the tension, just looking at each other and going, and then afterwards totting up the treasure.
Would there be any benefit for the fun bit to introduce a third person who is basically the alarm, who doesn't have glasses, so they can see everything? They can't communicate, but they basically set off an alarm, or they are the alarm if you hit a laser. So kind of you're doing that, and at any minute they could just go.
Oh my God, then it becomes an operation.
Would that add to the tension?
I think it would certainly add to something. It reminded me, I think the game it most reminded me of, if you've ever played UniQuest, which is another sort of
doodling
dry
game.
wipe drawing game, doodling game, I guess you would call it, where you'd have everyone has the same map in front of them and a clear piece of acetate, and you've got to draw on the map you've got to draw on the acetate the line through the level, and then everyone puts the acetate on top of the map, and then you see who gets basically closest to collecting all the stuff. Accomplices shares a lot of aspects of that, and it feels pretty much like a bit more of a grown-up evolution of what UniQuest was. But yeah, in terms of like a really interesting, like 20-minute 2-player
pick up and play
game, it's it's really fun. And also, like, in terms of that experience, the two of us, me and Kris, sitting there with these bright red and bright blue goggles on our faces, like playing games. It's one of those games that when my wife walks into the kitchen, looks at me and Kris, we look up and she just turns around and walks straight back out again.
She's seen all she needs to see.
Walking out, just saying it'd be so much easier if he was just having an affair.
But that's Accomplices, and if you are into 2-player games, especially I think with kids as well, I think this would be a really superb little game.
It does look really fun.
The other thing I got to show you, Kris, whilst you're at my house, was a really stupid thing that I bought myself.
I thought, Dan, I'd have to wear gloves to handle this special thing.
Have you been treating yourself, Sam?
I did. I bought a silly thing. It's a very
why do you say it's silly? Is it because you feel, because a lot of people when this thing was announced said that it's pointless?
Said it was a very silly thing.
Yeah.
I said it was pointless, and it is what I would very much describe as a luxury goods.
Okay.
It's a PlayStation Portal.
That is very much, that would fall under the luxury goods area of the gaming accessories.
The other reason why it's very silly is I can do what the PlayStation Portal does through my Steam Deck.
Okay, that is very silly then.
Yeah, but which one's prettier?
Oh my God, the PlayStation Portal is an extremely pretty piece of kit. Like, it is extraordinary, actually. And I am in love with it quite a lot. I've been playing it more than my Switch or my Steam Deck recently, but I realise it is a luxury item, like, because not only is it quite expensive, it's not cheap, but it does rely on several things. It relies on you owning a PS5, which again
Doesn't come
isn't
cheap.
cheap. Doesn't come cheap. It relies on you having a fast internet connection, which there are certain geographical implications of that.
Yeah.
Access and also affordability in terms of really having an internet connection that really supports the streaming element of the game. It doesn't have Bluetooth on it. So if you want to listen to the games that you're playing without having a corded interface with the PlayStation Portal, you have to buy one of the PlayStation's Sony's very own headsets, which are about 150 quid each. I haven't quite got that stupid yet.
I'm surprised something as widely used as Bluetooth didn't find its way in here. It's almost as if they don't want you using a Bluetooth thing because they want you to use something in particular.
Well, the Switch didn't have Bluetooth for a long time either. The argument from Sony is this is something to do with how the audio is streamed from the PS5 to the PlayStation Portal. That if you were to use Bluetooth, there'd be a lot of lag in the sound, which they've seemingly been able to get around with what I think it's called PlayStation Link or something like that. I don't know. The Digital Foundry have probably done a video about it, a lot more erudite and clever than I am.
But what is it, Sam, for those who haven't experienced this? Because for me, seeing this in the flesh, Dan, it was the closest. Because I'm not a car person, but I imagine this is what it must feel like if I'd gone round and see that Sam had treated himself to a nice sports car. That was the feeling it felt like for me when I said, "Oh my word!" And he was like, "Do you want to go? Do you want to take it for a spin?" I said, "Oh yes, Spider-Man 2, yes please."
Well, I did have to buy a case for it because it doesn't come with a case either, so I had to buy a case for it. And the case is white, which I didn't like, and it's actually velvet lined, which I didn't realise when I bought it. So it's
This is really not helping.
The most decadent gaming setup.
I know. But the PlayStation Portal it's a streaming device. It is basically, imagine a PlayStation 5 controller that someone's chopped in half, and in the middle they've stuck like a whacking great big LCD screen. And all it does is it just runs PlayStation Remote Play. That's all it does.
Yeah, so I was gonna say this is similar to where you could run your PlayStation through your laptop, or you could run it through your phone or your iPad and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But obviously the controller would be separate.
Yeah, so the controller will be separate, but it's just like if you've got the Remote Play app on your, as Dan was saying, on your laptop or your phone or whatever, all it does is when you turn it on, it just boots up Remote Play and immediately starts looking for the PlayStation that it's linked to. And if your PlayStation is on the rest mode and you've got an internet connection both ends, you just connect to it and you get portaled straight into your PlayStation. And this is the thing that is different to how the operation works with the Steam Deck. Is the Steam Deck you have to be on the same Wi-Fi, but the PlayStation Portal you can play from anywhere as long as your PlayStation 5 is on Wi-Fi and your PlayStation Portal is connected to Wi-Fi wherever you are in the world. You can
really.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I thought it was just.
Yeah.
I thought it was just I want to play PlayStation, but I don't want to play it on the TV device.
No.
So because you sent us a picture the other day, Sam, was that while you were on a lunch break at work?
That was while I was at work. Yeah, on the work Wi-Fi. Just, so Lisa's sitting there at home and then she'll hear this beep. As my PlayStation 5 boots up and it's just me at work, just turning it on.
But often when you do that, when you turn the PlayStation on, it will often switch the TV to that input. So is she in the middle of watching something and like, oh, now I've got to wait for Sam to turn his PlayStation on, I've got to interrupt my show.
I thought it would do that, but it does recognise that it's been done. So it does it through
clever.
Remote Play. So, it doesn't turn on the PlayStation either. Yeah, so in bed, on the sofa, while my wife's watching stuff on the TV, at work, I've been having an incredible time playing PlayStation 5 games. And the other great thing about the Portal is that not only does it look like someone's cut a PlayStation 5 controller in half and slapped a big screen on it, it is a PlayStation 5 controller. So it has all the haptics that come with a PlayStation 5 controller. So it vibrates, adaptive triggers, everything that it has, which which is great. But when but when I was playing Spider-Man 2 in bed the other day, I've got my headphones in, and all my wife can hear is. And all the adaptive triggers are just like whirring away inside. So I had to turn it down because it just sounded awful.
Does it have the speaker in there as well, or is that because obviously the PlayStation the DualSense controllers have a speaker in there, which for some games is incredibly loud.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know because I've only ever played it with headphones in. I have to say, I think one of the reasons why it has kind of usurped the Switch and the Steam Deck for me is a couple of reasons. First of all, I'm just like into playing Spider-Man at the moment. That's just like what my jam is. So I'm kind of enjoying having that experience. And the other reason why, because it's not a piece of hardware really, it's just not a piece of hardware. It's very light and it doesn't make any noise other than the haptics, which you can turn down. There's no fan. There's no real other element to it. It's very, very slim. So it means that like carrying it around the house, taking it to work, playing it for bed, I can sort of have longer play sessions with it because the battery lasts longer because all the battery is really powering is the like the Wi-Fi adapter and the screen and the haptics and stuff. And also it's not as heavy to hold for longer periods of time. And yeah, the other fact is just also being able to play those high fidelity games on the go wherever I am is something that I don't really get with any other handheld. I mean, the Steam Deck is an incredible handheld device, like it is marvelous, but over time it will become slowly outdated. It will not be able to run all the high-end stuff that I want it to, and it will over time. I'm sure Steam will carry on supporting it, but even then, over time, the Steam Deck will just end up becoming a device where I play stuff that is slightly legacy, that is slightly older. With the PlayStation Portal, because it's always just streaming on my PS5, I don't have to worry about memory. I don't have to worry about graphics. All I have to worry about is that my internet is good enough.
Well, I think that's kind of one of the issues. I mean, it's not a massive issue, but like with PC gaming, that you can have a great setup for a PC game, like I'm going to do this, but like technology is constantly moving, and games are constantly getting bigger and more impressive and more graphically kind of demanding. So you need bigger and bigger setups. And doesn't mean that your setup can't run these, but it just can't run them to the same level. With a PlayStation, that technology doesn't change. A game that you play at the start and at the end uses the same technology. So yes, game developers always figure out ways of getting more out of it, but it's still that same technology. So you're not having to deal with that upgrade. Obviously, when PlayStation 6 comes out, that's different. But there is that element with the Steam Deck, I can imagine, of you get to the point that, yes, technically you could play, I don't know, Crisis 7, but Crisis is my go-to for really graphically impressive games. That's what I go to.
Cyberpunk is probably a more...
Yeah, okay, Cyberpunk 4077. When that game's like, yeah, you could probably play that on the Steam Deck. Is it going to be the best experience of that? Is it going to be a little bit sluggish? Are the graphics not going to really pop as much compared to actually the way these massive AAA PC games tend to be? Is like, let's throw everything at it. And if you've got the setup, it's going to look insane. Like you look like a Microsoft Flight Simulator. Like if you've got the setup, that is one of the most unbelievable games of all time. But playing it on a Steam Deck, you're not going to get that same experience because kind of that technology doesn't necessarily track. And I think that's probably a benefit of the PlayStation Portal, because it's the benefit of consoles that you have this set period of time that you know I've got the best games available for the next 5 years, and I will be able to play all of them to the level that they were designed to be played at.
So for me, like, you know, Baldur's Gate 3 is a game that I've been itching to play, you know, ever since it came out, and not really knowing how I was going to play it. Like, I knew that it is okay on the Steam Deck, like it is fine. It has lots of issues though, and you know, even though that Larian Studios are always coming out with updates and trying to help it run on the Steam Deck a lot better, I was kind of always leaning towards a PS5 version. But then I was like, well, I don't really want to play it on the PS5 because it's, it's a game that's going to take me 100 to 200 hours, to play. And I really struggle to have that kind of direct one-on-one time with my PlayStation 5 because most of the time if I'm in the living room, I'm with my wife and we're watching the same thing. But now with the PlayStation Portal, it's kind of like, this is brilliant, which means, we don't have to watch the same thing, but now we can be in the living room, share the same space. I can play my PlayStation 5 as well as my Steam Deck and as well as my Switch and all that kind of stuff.
All at once.
And
just sat there.
All at once.
But I also think, Sam, there are certain games that I think that work really well handheld. And I don't want to play on a big screen regardless. That's the thing that I find most attractive. Because there's been a few kind of more indie titles or kind of interactive novels that I don't really want to play on my sofa on a big screen. I like that intimacy of playing them on a slightly smaller screen. So that's what I find quite attractive about the Portal as a consequence.
Well, you bring up actually a good point there, Kris. Because obviously, Sam, you were saying that you were playing Spider-Man. So this is, I'm assuming, Spider-Man 2. If you were going to talk about a game that should be played on a big screen, something like Spider-Man 2, I would say, is one of them. Those huge kind of vistas of New York, those huge New York landscapes that you swing through, and that is kind of stunning architecture they've been able to create in those games. Surely that's the kind of game that you need, that's going to really suffer from being on a small screen. So how is that transition from that big screen of experience translate to this kind of small handheld?
Well, it's perspective, isn't it? So it's the fact that it's a big screen, but it's 10 foot away from me. This is a smaller screen, but it's only a foot away from me. So so really the screen is just as big as it always is. It's just a bit closer, if that makes sense. But the PlayStation Portal screen is actually slightly oversized. Like it's just got a really nice design by how it's sort of the screen bleeds over the edge of where the controller is. So unlike the Steam Deck or the Switch, where the screen is the same size, if not smaller than the controllers that it's around, the PlayStation Portal, the screen sort of is the main attraction. They've really put a lot of effort into it because it doesn't need hardware to run it. It doesn't need a fan to power it. They've able to go sort of slightly overboard with the screen itself, which means playing something like Spider-Man is it's not like it is on the big screen. It's it's the equivalent of it's not exactly like watching Dune on the IMAX to then watching Dune on an airplane, even though that's kind of what it might feel like. The overall experience, how good that screen looks, how good it feels to play, the added feeling of being somewhere in comfort that you can kind of lie down when you play or be slightly, slouched back, adds to this degree of decadence around it and adds to another sort of way to interact with the games that you own. And it's kind of just a pleasurable, dumb, stupid experience, which the PlayStation Portal just allows you to revel in.
I have to say, I thought of it as a silly thing. When I saw it, I was like, first, that's cool, silly. But it's a bit silly. It's luxury. Don't really want it. You have made me look at it, and it's too expensive for me to get right now. But I do look and think, actually, yeah, I can imagine being in bed and just playing a game. Even something for my little one, because my little one likes to play some games on the PlayStation. He loved playing his Switch, and part of that reason is the fact of it's easier for him to hold in his hands. Now, obviously, the PlayStation controller is still difficult to hold, but if he wanted to play Minecraft and stuff like that, which he started playing, not having to have the TV on, having that option for him to play some of those slightly more advanced games, that is interesting.
Just before we go, so Stags, I've started to put together a little prep bag for Stags in terms of games. It's very small at the moment. There's a couple of things on there, but games that went down really well, just as kind of a bit of a sort of an aid memoir to me. And if you are planning on doing anything like this in the future with friends, going down the pub, playing some games together with people,
this is great.
It's a new genre, the Stag games.
it's new genres. It's kind of like Stag games, but it's also like games that you can easily play around like a very small pub table, or allow you to like drink and chat as you're playing them. So No Thanks, Trio,
Yeah.
Skull, and we also played Marder as well.
Oh yeah.
All games that we played. Trio is one of my new favourites. It's an absolutely superb little card game. If you see it in a shop,
Beautiful.
just pick it up.
Beautiful
Trust
looking
me.
as well.
It's beautiful looking, but I've played it with several different people and groups from 3 up until 6, and each time it's just remarkable. There is basically what if a child's match puzzle game, but for adults, but it's kind of like all that stupid nonsense fun of like a kid trying to remember which square is rubble and which square is chase. But as adults, it's great. But the standout, both literally and figuratively, was a game that we got sent from Big Potato called Cards versus Gravity.
Yes, I've seen videos of this.
And very simply, it is Jenga that you can keep in your pocket. Now, I've long said that Jenga is the perfect game.
You've long said it.
Long said it. It's something I've long believed, but never. I've long believed it, but never really verbalized it much before. But yeah, Jenga is, the perfect game, and I don't mean like it is the best game, but I mean in terms of packing it away, you set it up for the next time to play. If you were to stumble across a set-up game of Jenga, you'd know immediately what you'd have to do and how you'd win and what losing looked like. I think it's just like one of those games which does everything it needs to, just in its form and its design, and I think it's very, very special for that. However, it's clunky, it's big, you don't really want to take it anywhere, it makes a lot of noise, and it is quite kind of a hassle to put back together again once everything falls apart. Cards vs. Gravity goes out of its way to pretty much solve all the problems that Jenga has, as well as making it a really good game to take to a pub or an outing with you. I will be bringing it probably to every wedding that I'm invited to this year, because it really condenses down to a small size and is superb. So how Cards vs. Gravity works is inside the box you get loads of these little cards, and you get this little like stopper that you put in the end of a bottle. So you can put it in the end of any bottle. It's got little squidgy things on the side, so it really adapts well to any bottle that you have on hand. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. And then on top of that little stopper is a magnet, and then you put a disc on that, top of that. And then on the disc there are little little apertures around the side, each one corresponding to a colour. And all you got to do is everyone gets dealt a hand of these cards, and the cards all have a different colour on them, or they're wild, so they can go in any colour, and you just got to take your card and place it inside the aperture, balancing on top of this bottle. Any future cards that have already been added to the disc needs to be added onto one of the little holes that is present in each of the little cards. So suddenly you get this sprawling spider-like structure that's all precariously balancing on top of this this bottle that you've got in the center of the table, and it becomes truly absurd, like the kind of structures and the ways that you can really manipulate the cards on there, and the amount of strength that they can hold is absolutely staggering. And we were playing it at this wonderful pub called Pivney in York, and the amount of people that like were just standing there looking at us play this game, or like arching their eyes over the tables like this, like looking at us playing Cards versus Gravity, it really just held the whole attention of the pub. It was just remarkable, and got so close to being able to place every single card in the game on top of this bottle. And it became one of those joyous experiences where we weren't doing it for competition anymore. We were just kind of doing it to try and really like create this incredible balanced dexterity structure in front of us. If this sounds like the game for you, get the Pro version. There's 2 versions. I don't know why, but there's Cards vs. Gravity and there's Cards vs. Gravity Pro. In the Pro version, you get a couple of extra cards. You get this thing called the Gravity Buster, which is a thicker card than normal, so it weighs more. And you also get the Gravity Bender, which is a thinner card and doesn't weigh as much and can actually bend in your hand. The other thing you get is a little bag, which has got a carabiner on. and the bag is very, very small, probably the size of an envelope. Everything fits in there, and you can just carabiner it to a bag on your way out. So it doesn't, it really doesn't weigh anything. You just attach it to it and forget about it. All the cards are waterproof. All the cards are made of a very, very robust material, so you can really bend them. They will just snap back into shape. You can get them wet and they'll wipe clean. You don't have to worry about them. Somehow they've just created like this perfect little pub game from Jenga, and it comes highly recommended. It is now the in the bag game of every occasion that I go to.
This sounds great. This sounds really great. Like, and I think also because I've started looking at like board games with kind of kids in mind as well, and like something like that, because like Toby, my 6-year-old, like we just like he loves playing Rhino Hero Super Battle at the moment. So like he's absolutely adores that game, and so he's just constantly wanting to play because he just loves the balancing aspects. Obviously, with those kind of games as well, it's like dexterity is great for kids because they can do the dexterity stuff. And obviously, by the sense that this is more dexterous than something like Rhino Superhero, but the principles are the same in terms of balancing and choosing the right places and stuff like that. And we're always looking for kind of party games to play with kind of family who aren't people who play games. So usually if we go in for dinner, we would like to take something like Sounds Fishy is like the kind of game we've had in the past.
Great game.
We're always looking for kind of new, interesting kind of games to play. And this feels like a really nice one to get. So I'll definitely be looking into this.
I've been on a website called, it's an off-putting site, it's called myprotein.com. But they surveyed...
This is like that time in Harrogate we went to Nutrition Joe's.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think any of us really knew what was going to be on the menu.
But the food was great. They surveyed 2,000 UK adults and asked them what were the best things about the 90s.
Oh.
Okay. As given the fact that we lived through the 90s,
yeah.
Well, for about 5 years of it, for half of it, what are the best things?
Did anyone say the fact there was no internet?
No, I don't think that's on
right,
here.
Okay.
Neither's New Labour.
Sometimes I look back on the 90s and that is my most fondest memory.
No, it's not that there was no internet, but there was no like bad internet in terms of like it was there was no social media.
It was still good.
Like it was just about getting information and like emailing and chatting and stuff like that. There was no social media.
It was just in Carter.
Yeah.
Did anyone say in Carter?
I'm totally with you on this, Sam, but it's not here. It really isn't here.
Did anyone say having to phone up to book cinema tickets?
I mean, these sound more like chapters from your life.
Did anyone say having to go into a shop in order to book a holiday? I went to a shop the other day. I went to Next, and in Next they had a TUI, like TUI holiday thing, and I was like, people still go to a shop to book a holiday?
They do, yeah. You can actually get some good deals through them actually, but yeah, yeah.
No, so these are things, so like cultural artifacts or
Tamagotchis.
Tamagotchis on there, number 31 out of 50. We're not going to do all 50
God,
by the
50
way.
of them.
We're not going to do all 50 by the way, but we'll see who
Can you not
gets.
just tell us the top 10?
Top 10. Number 10, Nokia 3210s.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, good.
Number 9, CD Walkmans.
No, they kept skipping.
Walking around, holding your CD player horizontally so it wouldn't skip. I totally experienced that. Number 8, video rental shops.
I wouldn't say one of the best things of the 90s, but there were something.
I do remember we as a family we would often go to the pub, and on our way home we would pass by this shop just near the pub where they used to have just like a small wall of videos, and like it was always a thing of like, can we go in and can we go into the video shop and just have a look and see if there's anything new there, and like we get so excited if like a new film had come in or something like that, and like the concept of that just kind of is bewildering to me that you would have that level of excitement compared to kind of what we have now. I do actually remember seeing this video clip from kind of way back in the day about kind of hotels showing kind of films in the hotel rooms and stuff like that, and you would get to choose your film that you wanted to watch, and it would just come up on the screen, which is obviously like now is how we live our lives, but that was like the most amazing thing. And what it was is when you chose it, like in the background, there was a machine taking a video out, putting it into like a VCR connected to your TV and pressing play, and like some like really like compared to now like Neanderthal level technology going on behind this
Do you
wall.
remember they used to have stuff like that in cars.
Yeah, CD
You know,
changers.
You used to have CD changers in cars. I
That's
remember
it.
my brother had a CD changer, and it was like it took up half his room, and it operated almost like a jukebox. So he could have 4 CDs in at a time, and it sort of they were all vertically stacked. And it would like basically whenever you change the CD, go like rotate round clockwise until it found the CD that you wanted, and then start playing it.
Wow, that's amazing. So number 7, take that.
Well, I was kind of thinking kind of Britpop.
TT.
So you're thinking Spice Girls, you're thinking Take That, but then you're also thinking your Blurs, your Oasis, that kind
Boys
of thing. I think
One, yeah.
music was actually kind of like quite iconic for that period.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I'd said Spice Girls are higher than Take That.
They are.
Spice Girls not on that.
Spice Girls are number 4, Sam.
All right, okay, cool. Okay,
So number 6, Titanic.
all right.
I feel like that was 1912. Was it 1912? Correct me if I'm wrong. Was it 1912?
So it was 1927 off the top of my head.
I
Wasn't
thought it was 1912. What's 1912? What happened in 1912?
it? Titanic.
Yeah, hang on. I'll just see if they surveyed the best things about the 1910s.
1912. Well done. Well done.
Well done, Dan.
15th of April, 1912.
Number 5, VHS tapes.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, the Spice Girls, which you've already spoken about. Number 3, Crystal Maze.
Very good.
Yeah,
/ Krypton Factor.
that's very high.
Number 2, The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And number 1, Friends.
Just
I
pals.
remember when I had friends in the 90s.
Hey, Art Attack's on there, but it's number 16.
What's the last? What's 50?
What just made the cut?
Sister.
Sister.
Wow. Like, I don't get me wrong. I watched that show and I like that show, but I would not have it as something I remembered fondly from the 90s. Keenan and Kel, yes, but...
Yeah, Keenan and Kel is on there, Dan. It is.
Is this just mainly a list of people's
number
favourite
35.
TV shows from when they were children?
35? Oh no, because the Macarena's on there at 32.
Oh, good. I did the Macarena in Pop World.
I think we've learned, Chris, what the demographic of Pop World was now. It wasn't the youngsters. Wow, there you go. See, the 90s.
Right. Do you know what was cleaner in the 90s?
Beaches.
Beaches. Do you know what didn't have? Do you know what didn't have sewage on them in the 90s?
Beaches.
Beaches.
Let's see. I'll see you on that 90s beach.
I'll see you on the 90s beach.
In a Fat Willy Surf Shack t-shirt.